mata I runga I te kupu karaki e hai nei. Nā, ka mea I wā. I te hui he toko rua, toko toru rāne I runga I taku ingoa. Māku e whakarite ana ki a rātau tērā e tika ana. Nā reira, e I kua tohungia mātai, e te Christ tohungia mātai, e I kua tohungia mātai. E tō mātai matsu e te rangi, kia tapu toa ingoa, kia tai mai tō rangatiratanga, kia me tia tāu e pai ai ki una ki te whenua ki anō ki tō te rangi. Ko mai kia mātai wai kia te i taro mō mātai mō te umi rā, muru o mātai hara, me mātai hoki e uri nei o te hunga e rā kia mātai. Aua hoki mātai e kaure a kia whakawaia, e ngari whakaurai ni mātai i te kino, nua hoki te rangatiratanga, te kahangu ki hororia, ake, āna. Kātai, kātua kāmi ki tā tātou e whai nei. Me ki, I runga I ngā āhuatanga o te wā, ara ngā mate tua e hai nei I te ao ki te pō. Nā reira, ko ngā mate kei runga I a pūtau, kei runga I a mātai, me whakawhai te mai konei kia tangihia, kia mihia, kia poroporo ai ia I te ewa. Nā reire, ko te kōrero ki a rātai, hari atu rā, o ki o ki mai. Ko rātai te hunga mate ki a rātai, ko tātai te hunga o ki a tātai, tēnā tātai, tēnā tātai, tēnā tātai. Me ki, tū mai awa, tū mai moanga, o koe kai takahia no tia ea. Au ko tātai o te wairua, te mihi nei kia koutou, me ki, kia tātou, ngā whanaunga o ngā iwi, ngā hapu, ngā marae, ngā whānau, e piri nei ki tō tātou taupapa I te tima. Nā reira, nau mai, I runga I ngā pānuitanga o tēnei roku a tātou o te wairua, ki te tokarongo ki ngā kōrero e pāna ki te whakataunga o te tiriti o Waitaki, ngā premi o te tiriti o Waitaki. Nā reira, kāre tōro ahia ngā mihi I tēnei wā, ko te mea nui, he pai te kite I a tātou, nā reira, tēnā koutou, tēnā tātou. Mai ngā iwi, tātou e, tūtira mai ngā iwi, tātou e, whai au te maramatanga, me te aroha e ngai, kia takotari, kia kotarina, tātou e, Abiti hono, tāpai hono, te hunga mate ki te hunga mate, abiti hono, tāpai hono, te hunga ora ki te hunga ora, tēnā tātai, tēnā tātai, tēnā tātai.
Kia ora ngā tātou, my name's Leon Symes. I'm the chair of the Tata Te Wairau Trust, along with my fellow trustees represented here today. We'd just like to welcome you to the first of these information hui will be running around the country concerning the final representation and asset arrangements for our treaty settlement that we're about to receive this Monday is the settlement date. So welcome again. We haven't been to Turanga before. It's been previously we've looked at where our members did live throughout the country, and we're focused on increasing our registrations, and we did get a strong registration response from our Turanga whānau, so it was quite right that we, through this process, come to Turanga, make sure that we are here and available for you to see the information presented, as well as present some of the trustees that we've been able to attend today. So we'll thanks for turning out on this not too pleasant day, and we know there's a lot of other activities going on up here this way. So we're grateful those who have been able to make it today to see our presentation, to be here to see what the initial trustees of your trust have been doing for the last 2 years, because work has been going on since we came trustees in 2016 about going through and looking at options in terms of what is the best way forward in a post-settlement environment for our treaty settlement concerning the representation and the assets. So hopefully with the presentation today you'll be able to ask some questions afterward and also with the booklets you've received, well, hopefully you'll be fully informed of the information required to make a decision on whether to support the resolutions that have been proposed. I'd just like to acknowledge Richard and his karakia, and I'll get our trustees along here to introduce themselves for particular which kahui they represent. So afterwards you can come up to them and approach them and ask them certain questions.
Kia ora, I te taho taku papa, ko treinga te marae, ko Ngāti Hinehika te iwi, ko te whānau nia te karanga. Te taho taku mama, no Mangatu, ko te whānau kōpiri te karanga tāhau. I represent the Waikare Māori Trust Board, and just to let you know, we're in a bit of a transition and we will soon be a motu ko Te Hononga o Ngā Awa, which is a collection of hapu and marae that starts in, if anybody knows our district that well, in the Ruakituri Valley we have our Erepeti whānau, with our Tereina whānau, down the river slightly to Marumaru, where we have a group called Inemani Riki Kwai Kaua. Further down the river we have our whanaunga at Tūtahi, our Ngāti Hinewhenga people, and further across the river from them we have our Ngāti Pēhi, Aranui Marae folk, and right down the mouth of the river we have our Idimihi whānau. Idimihi Ngāti Tupu, Ngāti Ratu. Koine mātou e mihi nei kia pōku. Kia ora.
Kia ora, nā Piki Kakau, nā Piki Uai, te whaki I te kamutu. Whakapa kamutu, wharai ko te rauhina, karu, I ngā pu.
And I'm here representing the kahui of Rungomawahini Nai Taraka Tō. And we do have apologies from our Ngā Tokoruma Hinu Manihiri whānau. They're represented. We couldn't attend today because of a tangihanga. Also, we've got other trustees not present due to other personal commitments on today, but they will be joining us at certain stages through this information sharing roadshow over the next 3 consecutive weekends around the country. So we're trying to share the workload and all this with these trustees present today. So thank you for turning up. Also acknowledging our Campbell Squared people here doing the live streaming. So we want to increase the engagement to make sure we get as many of this information available as possible to all our online members as well. And also special mention to Stephanie, you'll hear her voice. She's here today, who's in this presentation. So a special mention for her as well, and the work she's done helping us putting this together as well. And also at the back here, you've got Dev admin services. So if you want to check your registration details, you want to vote today, she's got a kind of a setup here as well. And also we've got a special group of whānau here representing Kāhui. We've got Whakaki Nui Arua, Te Hongongo Ngā Awa, and Te Waro Te Pakoro Whānui. So if you affiliate to any of those particular Kāhui, then please make yourself available to them just to check your details as well. So thank you. And housekeeping matters, like all good things. In case of emergency evacuation procedures, fire exit out to the left and right to the conference facility. Through the reception, and then out to the toilets. Go down by the toilets are through the fire doors and down the corridor, and the fire exit doors is to the left. That way. You've got two options. Please just follow the exits. If you are a smoker, they say here you need to sign a disclaimer due to wet smoking area. They don't want you slipping up out there in the smoking area by the looks of it. And if a cup of tea will be served around 12:30. So we'll get into the presentation now. It is 40 minutes long, but it has all the details that our whānau have been asking for us. You know, we went around last year on a roadshow a couple of times to get aspirations, values, principles, looked at a couple of concepts based on a devolution type and an amalgamation type spectrum. We came with two models at the end of November last year, so that's 12 months ago, and then we were asked by our whānau to put their feedback together, as well as look at getting some assistance in seeing what other PSGs are doing in this space. So we engaged the likes of Chapman Tripp and Deloitte to put some of this information together. So we're taking our feedback from our whānau and trying to merge the two together and collaborate and come up with what you're going to see today. So the whānau have asked us to come with that detail, and I think we've done that in terms of that final model. So hopefully have a listen and watch the presentation, and then afterwards we'll have some questions and answers about if there's anything that arises from what you've seen so far in the booklet and what you're about to see in the presentation. Without any further ado, we'll just kick into it.
Tēnā koutou katoa. Nau mai, haere mai. Thank you for joining us today as we take the next step in our settlement journey and vote on our final representation and asset arrangements. We are tātou o Te Wairoa Trust, the post-settlement government's entity, or PSG, for the iwi and hapu of Te Rohe o Te Wairoa. It is our responsibility on behalf of our iwi, hapu and whānau to manage the redress that will be received as part of our settlement with the Crown. Tātou o Te Wairoa has 14 initial trustees elected by our iwi, hapu and whānau who are helping to ensure we build a solid foundation for the future growth and development of our settlement redress. Our initial trustees aim to serve a term of 2 years. Their first term began in November 2016. Our initial trustees are responsible for managing and overseeing a review process in relation to the ownership arrangement for the Trust's assets and representation, our current mahi. Consulting with representatives of our iwi and hapu to decide whether to purchase any properties that might become available during the initial 2-year period. Maintaining records and information that will facilitate the initial trustees' preparation of the first annual plan, 5-year strategic plan, and annual report. This presentation covers the key points in your information booklet relating to the final representation model for Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. Following this presentation, we will have 30 minutes for you to ask any questions you may have. Ka tahi ka kaputi tātou, so you can meet your representatives and our support teams who are here today. Also, if you are not yet a registered member of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa, we can help you to register today so that you can vote. In August and November 2017, we held engagement hui around Aotearoa to seek your thoughts and feedback on our aspirations, values and principles, and on potential models for our asset and representation arrangements. It was great to see so many whānau participating, and lots of new faces too, with many tuning in to watch the live-streamed videos and sending us their messages online. We received invaluable feedback from you during this time, which has shaped our trustees' mahi over 2018. We are now back on a hīkoi across Aotearoa, holding a round of hui in Te Wairoa, Turanganui-a-Kiwa, Here Taunga, Rotorua, Kirikiriroa, Tāmaki Makaurau, Te Papaioia, Te Whanganui-a-Tara me o Tautahi. We are presenting exactly the same information at each hui, which will cover a recap of our settlement journey to get to this point, and how we will manage the settlement redress, including how kāhui representation and our unit trust model will work. The hui will be an opportunity to ask all the pātai you have, and also, if you haven't voted online or by post already, to vote on our representation and asset arrangement model and trust deed changes via special ballot box. Your vote is really important to us. Remember, it is you who will determine if we can move forward with the proposed final asset and representation arrangements. It's you, our people, who ultimately decide on the future of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa. Our settlement journey began more than 30 years ago when our kaumātua first lodged historical treaty claims with the Waitangi Tribunal in the early 1980s for the area between Turanganui-a-Kiwa and Mohaka, the Wairoa Inquiry District. Ultimately, our whakapapa and whanaungatanga helped us to work together. Our iwi, hapu and whānau eventually formed into a single large natural grouping under the name of Te Tira Whakaimi o Te Wairoa, made up of 7 clusters of iwi, hapu and whānau groups across the district. It took years of intense discussion, consultation and negotiation to finally get to our Deed of Settlement and PSG, Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust ratification, which our iwi, hapu and whānau confirmed in 2016. Our official Deed of Settlement signing ceremony was held in Wairoa on the 26th of November 2016. The iwi and hapu of Te Rohe o Te Wairoa Claims Settlement Bill had its first and second readings in Parliament on the 20th of December 2017 and 15th of March 2018 respectively, which were well attended by whānau. On the 6th of September 2018, we celebrated the third and final reading of our settlement bill in Parliament. This was an historic occasion for our iwi, hapu and whānau, and the culmination of many, many years of hard work that our tipuna started. Our settlement gained the royal assent on the 13th of September 2018 and is now law. We are now here today to present to you the final representation and asset arrangements for Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. You are being asked to vote on the following special resolutions. The adult registered members resolve to amend the Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust Deed as set out in the marked up Trust Deed entitled Revised Version November 2018, and approve the unit trust model as the asset and representation model for the Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. The Trust needs to pass this special resolution so that we can have an agreed representation model and way of managing our settlement assets. The Trust asks all whānau to review the proposed representation and asset arrangement model and then to vote yes to approve the special resolution. The special resolution must receive at least 75% support of valid votes cast for it to be passed. The current trust deed, ratified in August 2018, has been updated to reflect the proposed final representation and asset arrangement model. The marked-up trust deed, entitled Revised Version November 2018, can be accessed on our website in the Documents section. If the special resolution does not receive the required level of support, the current trust deed, ratified in August 2018, will stand and a new set of trustee elections will be held. What it really means is that we will lose the opportunity to move forward that our iwi, hapu and whānau have been waiting for so long. Whānau, our ultimate goal has been to move as quickly as possible through the legislative process to complete Crown involvement in this part of our journey and move into a position of holding our destiny in our own hands. We are pleased that we have achieved this, and it is now solely up to our iwi, hapu and whānau to make the big decisions on our future. This is an exciting time. It's you, our people, who'll decide on the final asset and representation arrangements. Your participation in this vote is crucial to a successful future for the iwi and hapu of Te Rohe o Te Wairoa. The voting period is open from Saturday the 3rd of November to 12 p.m. Monday 26th of November 2018. The Independent Returning Officer, elections.com, is running this voting process. All adult registered members of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa are eligible to vote. There are 3 ways to vote. You can vote by post, online, or by ballot box at these hui. For voting inquiries, including requests for replacement voter packs, please contact the election helpline on 0800 666 946 or, for overseas residents, 0064 377 3530. Or email iro@elections.com. What happens after the vote? We expect to receive the results within 1 week of vote closing. The Trust will notify all members of the outcome of the vote, so keep an eye on your email as well as the Trust's website and Facebook page for updates. If the Trust achieves the required support for introducing this final representation and asset arrangement model, the Trust will make the required changes to the trust deed and new kāhui tātou tātou representatives will be elected by the end of March 2019. The tātou tātou representatives will be the directors of the corporate trustee of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. Our new Tātou Tātou representatives will focus on finalising Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa 5-year strategic plan, which is in draft form at the moment. A consultation process will be run next year amongst our members so that we can get your feedback on this important document. At our engagement hui in 2017, we presented some possible models for the future structure of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa for you to consider. We discussed how these models could be applied separately or parts taken from each to create a final model. You told us what you thought of the models presented to you and why. What aspects you liked and what parts you didn't like, and what further detail you needed that would enable you to make an informed decision. We have listened to your views and those contained in further information gathered and have brought them together to develop a recommended final representation and asset arrangement model for the future structure of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa. It is this final model that you are being asked to vote on now. If you vote yes to this model, and we strongly encourage you do, this is how we will manage the settlement redress received on the settlement date, 12th of November 2018, to benefit our iwi, hapu and whānau for generations to come. Our recommended representation and asset arrangement is 7 kāhui, cluster groups, each with a legal structure in place in order to be a unit holder in tātou tātou o te Wairoa Trust upon settlement. A unit trust model, with each kāhui holding units in tātou tātou o te Wairoa Trust. We had to consider which model would deliver more immediate benefits and greater control of income derived from the settlement for the kāhui and our iwi, hapu and whānau right from the outset. But we also had to incorporate parts of key strengths of existing PSG models around collective mechanisms of asset management and economies of scale through keeping the principle intact while allowing for kāhui seeking independence to be enabled to do so without the need for further tātou tātou trust deed changes or special resolutions. We have looked closely at all other PSG models of a similar size to tātou tātou and how representation and delivery of benefits to their members is undertaken. However, none of these models are believed to be an appropriate identical match for the management of our settlement redress due to our circumstances. We are unique, and we need a unique model for our settlement that is tailored specifically to the needs of iwi, hapu and whānau. This is your opportunity to vote on the final representation and asset arrangement model that will help shape the future of our tamariki and mokopuna. The unit trust model reflects a combination of the concepts and models presented to you in the August and November 2017 engagement hui. It incorporates a combination of both consolidated and diversified asset ownership, where the principal settlement is kept together and income derived is either reinvested or distributed to kāhui. In regards to being grouped by kāhui, the feedback we have received is that many whānau think it's best to continue on the path that we have forged through the settlement process so far, being grouped by hapu for representation, then coming together under one umbrella group. Many whānau say they are used to the kāhui structure and feel that it is fair that each group can elect its own representative as trustees on the board. That way, each smaller group's voice is heard, but overall, we are stronger together as one. So, after considering your feedback, the initial trustees recommend we continue with the existing kāhui representation approach for tātou tātou o te Wairoa Trust. Let's now take a close look at the key features of the unit trust model and how the kāhui representation will work within it. All this information is contained in the information booklet from page 14 onwards. So how will kāhui representation work? First and foremost, under the unit trust model, each kāhui needs to have a structure in place in order to be a unit holder in tātou tātou o te Wairoa Trust. There are several requirements for a kāhui structure to stand. 1. It needs to be robust and have clear provisions around the appointment of its governors. 2. The structure may be charitable. However, if it is charitable, it will be restricted to charitable activities. If your kāhui does not have a structure in place currently, it is recommended that a discretionary trust is set up to represent your kāhui on tātou tātou o te Wairoa Trust. A template trust deed has been prepared which can be aligned to the specific needs of your kāhui. This can be accessed on the Documents section of our website. It takes approximately 3 months to set up a discretionary trust. More information around the rules of operation for discretionary trusts can be found on page 17 of the information booklet, and we can answer any pātai you have on this after this presentation. If you already have a structure in place to represent your kāhui, your options are 1. To continue using your current structure upon settlement date. 2. To set up a discretionary trust as another entity using the template trust deed. 3. to incorporate aspects of the template trust deed into your current structure by amending your current structure's governing documents. The current trust deeds for the various kāhui who are establishing a new discretionary trust to hold units in Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust can be accessed on the document section of our website. Let's take a look at how kāhui are represented on Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. Each kāhui will elect one representative to Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust to be its Tātou Tātou representative. The elected Tātou Tātou representative will be a director of the corporate trustee of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. We'll talk more about how the corporate trustee works soon. Each kāhui will have a representative beneficial entity which will hold units in Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. Each beneficial entity will hold the same number of units initially. 1 unit equals $1 of financial and commercial redress, excluding the value of the interest received as part of an initial distribution to kāhui. Now let's explain what having a corporate trustee means. A corporate trustee is a company which acts as the trustee of a trust. The people who would have been trustees of the trust are appointed as directors. As mentioned before, the elected Tātou Tātou representative will be a director of the corporate trustee of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. We recommend having a corporate trustee for several reasons. 1. It reduces the administrative burden on the trust. What this means practically is that authorised person or persons can bind the trust, instead of all trustees having to sign contracts. 2. It provides protection for trustees and their whānau. Legally, trustees are personally liable, and this can put them and their whānau at risk. The establishment of a corporate trustee provides a layer of protection for those directors who are tasked with this important mahi for the trust. The establishment of corporate trustees is a common approach for a trust managing assets of a significant value, including PSGEs. For example, Ngāti Whātua Ōrākei and Ngāti Porou both have corporate trustees. We think it is important to our values to include a charitable trust arm as part of the unit trust model. This charitable trust will hold 2 units in Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. The focus of the charitable trust will be to run charitable activities for the benefit of the members of the iwi and hapu of Te Rohe o Te Wairua. Equally, we also need to have a part of the trust dedicated to running our commercial activities. Our commercial arm will be managed through a commercial company and board. When we look at board representation on the commercial company, we must ensure this board is separate from the Tātou Tātou board. The commercial board will prepare a statement of investment policy and objectives, which includes the parameters under which the commercial company will operate. And the commercial board will make investment decisions within those parameters. The SIPO must be approved by the directors of the corporate trustee of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairua Trust. When we look at who sits on the commercial board, we recommend that a minimum of 5 directors will be appointed and removed by the corporate trustee. At least 1 member has to reside in the Wairua district. Directors will have their remuneration set by the Tātou Tātou board on a fixed fee basis. They will be appointed for a 2-year term initially, then every 3 years thereafter. All directors may be reappointed for a further term or terms. An appointment process would be held to replace a vacancy more than 6 months out from expiry. Where a vacancy existed within 6 months of an expiry, the vacancy would remain until the next appointment. Appointments will be made on a best person for the role basis. That is, they must have the ability and expertise to maximise returns that will either be reinvested or distributed to kāhui. To ensure the best candidate for the role, selections for candidates will need to be done in consultation with a suitably qualified independent agency. What happens to our forest asset? Our forests are treated separately within the unit trust model and are run by their own limited liability companies due to our shared interest with our neighbouring iwi. By the 5th anniversary of the unit trust model being ratified, the beneficial entities representing kāhui with interests in the forests must enter an agreement outlining their interests. If a beneficial entity becomes independent, they will receive shares in the relevant forestry company in proportion to their interest outlined in the agreement. We will discuss some long-term financial forecasts for the unit trust model later on in this presentation. But at a distributions level, part of the interest accrued will be distributed to each beneficial entity over 3 years from the date the unit trust model is ratified in proportion to their units. From the 4th year on, distributions will be made corresponding to the unit interest in December every year at 40% of profits. If a kāhui did not want to receive some or all of their annual distribution, then this could be held by Commercial Board for up to 6 months. A kāhui could also reinvest some or all of its distribution with Commercial Board that would result in increased units for that kāhui. There are set rules when it comes to deferred selection properties, or DSPs. The beneficial entity of a kāhui may choose to purchase a DSP during the first 3 quarters of the DSP selection period for the relevant DSP, after which the Commercial Board may purchase the DSP. Where only one kāhui has an interest in a DSP, that kāhui may notify the Tātou Board in writing that it wishes to purchase it and work with Tātou Board to go through the DSP process. The Tātou Board will instruct the Commercial Board to purchase the DSP and transfer it to the kāhui or its nominee. Note, under the deed of settlement, there's no provision to nominate another entity to purchase DSPs. Where there's an overlapping interest in a DSP, all the kāhui with overlapping interests must establish and nominate a joint entity, which they must determine their respective interests in, to purchase the DSP. They must then notify the Tātou Board that they wish to purchase the DSP jointly, then work with the trustee to go through the DSP process. The Tātou Board will instruct the Commercial Board to purchase the DSP and transfer it to the joint nominated entity. The price for a DSP will initially be satisfied by the Commercial Board and on transfer to the kāhui will be satisfied by a payment of cash, through a redemption of units or a mixture of both by the beneficial entity representing the kāhui. Where a beneficial entity has not exercised its right to purchase a DSP during the first 3 quarters of the deferred selection period, or no kāhui has an interest in the DSP, the Commercial Board will be able to purchase the DSP. Rights of first refusal properties, RFRs, will have a similar process to that of DSPs. Where an RFR is triggered, the Tātou Board will notify the kāhui that has indicated an interest and work through the process together. Where there are overlapping interests in RFRs, the Tātou Board will notify the kāhui that have indicated an interest, and these kāhui may establish a joint entity to purchase the property. Where a beneficial entity does not confirm it wishes to purchase the property within a certain time frame, the Commercial Board will be able to purchase the properties. Together, all these features make up our final representation and asset arrangement model. Now let's take a closer look at the kāhui relationship with Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. As explained earlier on, each kāhui will elect one person to be its representative on Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust, the Tātou representative for that kāhui, and a director of the corporate trustee. It is important that the relationship between Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust and each kāhui is two-way. The Tātou Tātou representative will report to Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust on the kāhui activities annually. Equally, the Tātou Tātou representative will report back to the kāhui on Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust's activities annually. When it comes to appointing kaumātua as and when required, the kāhui will appoint one kaumātua to the Kaumātua Council for Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. In the engagement hui in 2017, we discussed whether there should be the option for a kāhui, or a rōpū as it was referred to then, to leave Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa if it decided that it wanted to be independent. Under this final representation and asset arrangement model, it is proposed that the kāhui may become independent from Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust via a special resolution vote. 75% of adult registered members in the kāhui must validly cast a vote in favour of the special resolution to ratify independence. A beneficial entity that has become independent may rejoin Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust, but it will need to purchase new units at a minimum of 5 million to do so. The Tātou Tātou Trust deed needs to be amended to reflect the kāhui independence option. This will be done as part of this vote. There are several key principles achieved through the kāhui independence process. High voting thresholds ensure fairness and a robust process. All adult registered members of the kāhui can vote on the exit, which ensures transparency. And time limits mean that the Tātou Tātou board has certainty going forward. This is due to a kāhui only being able to trigger an independence request within the set time periods. Becoming independent will mean that the beneficial entity representing a kāhui redeems its units in Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust for cash and shares in the forest companies. However, a kāhui will remain a part of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust in perpetuity because Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa is the PSG for the single comprehensive settlement with the Crown. The cultural redress received as part of the settlement will always stay with Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust, as this is what is contained in our Deed of Settlement and Claims Settlement Act. An independent kāhui will no longer have a trustee representative on Tātou Tātou board, but it will remain connected to Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa through a formal agreement including rights to purchase RFR land and how cultural redress matters will be handled. The amended trust deed will set out the process by which a beneficial entity can become independent from Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa. You can read more about the kāhui independence process on page 19 of your information booklet. Now that we've covered off how the unit trust model will be structured and how the kāhui representation will work within this model, let's take a look at the long-term financial benefit of this type of model. Over the past year, your initial trustees have engaged experts to undertake detailed financial modelling of the unit trust model to assess the likelihood of its financial viability in the long term, and so we can be sure that the iwi, hapu and whānau will benefit. We've looked at costs, return on investment, risks and relevant qualitative factors based on 2 scenarios. You can take a detailed look at the financial modelling on pages 20 to 25 of your information booklet, but we'll also go through this in some detail now. Scenario 1 is where we remain as Tātou Tātou Collective for at least 25 years, where all kāhui manage their assets collectively. Scenario 2 is where one kāhui leaves the collective at a defined point in time, for example after 5 years, and manages their share of pūtea individually. Underpinning all of this were several guiding principles: to mitigate risk, to preserve options, to ensure decisions by consensus, to ensure accountability and transparency that is fair to all parties involved and that involves arm's-length decision-making. You can read more about these guiding principles on page 21 of your information booklet. Now let's take a look at each modelled scenario. Under Scenario 1, all kāhui invest collectively for 25 years. This includes the forest asset with an estimated value of $6.035 million. The forest asset itself is estimated to generate 3% lease income and 1% capital gain per annum. An initial asset allocation of 40-60 between growth assets, low-risk assets has been modelled. A final asset allocation of 60-40 between growth assets, low-risk assets over 6 years. This happens once a broader range of investment opportunities are assessed and the collective has greater certainty over the investment term, asset classes and risk appetite that kāhui are comfortable with. Under Scenario 1, cash income and capital gains are expected to grow over time as a result of compound interest and reinvestment. Distributions have been modelled as follows. Initial 3 years of distribution consists of the total $7.4 million of net accrued interest distributed to kāhui. This is indicated by the dark purple columns in the diagram. Each kāhui receives approximately $1 million spread over 3 years if they retain all their units in Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa Trust. There is no distribution of the portfolio's profits in the initial 3 years, with 100% of earnings reinvested into the portfolio. From year 4, distributions policy is set at 40% of earnings, with the remaining 60% being reinvested into the portfolio. This diagram shows the potential cash distributions for each kāhui over 25 years based on these assumptions. The next 2 graphs illustrate the potential growth in the collective portfolio, diagram 3, and share allocated to each kāhui, diagram 4, over 25 years. It also shows how the income is split between costs, distributions and reinvestment. At the end of year 25, under the modelled assumptions, the initial $113.4 million portfolio capital could grow to $244 million in aggregate. This includes the $6.035 million estimated value of the forest asset. This is an increase of $130.6 million. At the end of year 25, the initial $16.2 million portfolio capital per kāhui could grow to $34.9 million in aggregate. This is an increase of $18.7 million. If any kāhui decide they want to leave the Tātou Tātou collective, we are keen to provide the right information to ensure they understand what this means from a financial and investment perspective. We have modelled Scenario 2 on the basis that a kāhui becomes independent in year 5. All kāhui initially invest in the Tātou Tātou model for 5 years, as per Scenario 1. At the start of year 6, one kāhui becomes independent. Asset allocation and distributions remain the same as under the Tātou Tātou scenario. However, there are costs to becoming independent. On becoming independent, the kāhui, for example, might incur a cost of $250,000 that includes a contribution to legal, valuation and structuring costs as shown in this diagram. The kāhui is also assumed to incur their own management costs to operate the fund of $450,000 per annum. This is $300,000 per annum greater than the kāhui share of the operating costs of Tātou Tātou o Te Wairoa. So we can compare the 2 scenarios on the same level. The kāhui is assumed to invest in the same investment mix. That is, 60% growth assets and 40% low-risk assets with the same returns. It is important to understand that the kāhui that has become independent may face practical constraints in order to achieve the same result as Scenario 1. It may be harder to achieve the same asset mix as the collective, as the smaller investment capital, approximately 15 million, compared with more than 100 million, may restrict the accessibility to invest in certain asset types such as private equity, commercial property, farms, and businesses. It may also be more difficult to achieve the same level of diversification, which results in greater risk exposure to single assets compared to the tātou collective scenario. Assuming the same asset mix and distribution profile, the portfolio income of the kāhui that becomes independent may be less than what could be achieved if the kāhui remains in the tātou model. This is due to the compounding effect of higher operating costs as shown in this diagram. Kāhui capital could grow from 17.3 million to 26.1 million. But this is 7.1 million lower than the modelled result of remaining in the tātou collective. This is because of the higher operating costs of the kāhui. To reduce the difference, the kāhui could invest a greater portion of their capital in growth assets, reduce costs while preserving capability, or reduce distributions. The purple dotted line on this graph shows the level of distributions modelled by staying within the tātou model. By comparing the level of distributions between Scenario 1 and Scenario 2, this is approximately 100% greater than those achievable under the independent scenario. Now let's recap. We are holding this hui so you can better understand how the proposed unit trust model and kāhui representation will work. We want to ensure you are fully informed before you vote on the special resolution. It's up to you, whānau, to decide if we can move forward with the final asset and representation arrangements. We strongly encourage you to vote yes to the special resolution to 1. Amend the tātou o te Wairua trust deed as set out in the marked up trust deed entitled Revised Version November 2018. And 2. Approve the unit trust model as the asset and representation model for the tātou o te Wairua trust. We'll now have questions and answers. Before we do, we have the following ground rules. Please respect others and remain quiet so that their pārtai can be heard clearly. Please identify yourself when you speak so we can record your name. Please keep questions related to the final representation and asset arrangement model. For other matters, please talk to one of your representatives. Thanks for your support, whānau. It's crucial in helping us build a positive future for the iwi and hapu of Te Rohe o Te Wairua. This is the beginning of our new era, and we are so excited and grateful to have you united with us on this journey. Nō reira, from all of us at tātou o Te Wairua Trust, ngā mihi kia koutou katoa, tēnā koutou, mauri ora.
Right, thank you, whānau, for listening and watching our presentation today. It has been a culmination of a lot of work and a lot of effort gone in from your initial trustees to get to this point to look at the feedback and what other models are doing out there with other PHGs. So just like to acknowledge the work that our trustees have done in getting all your views and that together, and hopefully you can see it represented in the presentation there. So we're keen now to get some questions going and answered and see what type of feedback you've got for us. Yeah, so hopefully we'll be able to answer some of your concerns you may have or raise some issues that we may not have covered in the presentation. Kia ora whānau. Any questions?
Kia ora tātou, ko Crystal Phillips tōku ingoa. He pātai tāku. I saw there was a mention of the charitable trust. How will that be funded? I saw.
So the charitable trust is a separate company or limited liability company holding 2 units in Tātou Tātou. So them being a unit holder, they're entitled to receive distributions to distribute to all members. But that's nothing to say that each of the individual kahui can set up their own charitable trust as well and do their own distributions for your kahui.
So it'll fund itself from
Yeah, so the Tātou Tātou Trust will give it some money to do some charitable work as well. So we're all clear on the kahui representation. We're all used to that through the treaty settlement process, the way the Crown kind of made us come together in a large natural grouping. So we decided to group ourselves into kahui. We couldn't see any other way other than stick with the kahui model. It's something we're pretty much been used to over these 30-odd years now. It relates to, we've got close, in some of these kahui, close whakapapa connections, whether with the people or with the land or with the whenua. So it just makes kind of sense that we continue on and not change that too much. But at the same time, we need to make sure that those kahui have got the proper legal structure in place, because now a lot of these key decisions are going to be made at that kahui level. So we're trying to push some of these key decisions down at the grassroots to make sure that they set their priorities, strategic visions and aspirations for individual kahui. We want to prioritise some of those work that previously with other PSGs that's all done centrally and collectively, and sometimes what a kahui wants may not be what the central collective wants. So what we're trying to do is create a bit of flexibility here, because we recognise some kahui on a different journey to others. Some are kind of more further on this journey, some are starting out. So we want to make sure that those are not, some kahui not held back by others. They've got flexibility to set their own priorities, focus on certain other activities, maybe health, housing, the reo. Others may be in other sectors wanting to do that first. So it gives you that flexibility. But at the same time, if the specific kahui is not ready to run, to get things going, they can reinvest their units back in the central trust and utilise other external funding agencies, TPK, MBI, that are out there, not touch their units till they get their capability going. And once their capability going, and then they're ready to move forward with their strategic aspirations and visions, then they can call on their distributions to start funding that. So it's giving you a lot of flexibility, but at the same time, with that flexibility comes responsibility. So it's paramount on those who connect to those individual kauis to make sure you hold those kauis account to what they're doing. That's a key aspect.
Kia ora, my name's Tira Johnson. I'm from ngā tokorima ngā Hine Manuhiri. I have, first of all, I'd just like to acknowledge the work that I know that you all must have done. I can see it's an incredible amount of documentation and work, and I imagine you've spent a lot of sleepless nights working on it, so just want to acknowledge that and say thank you. I have a series of questions. I'm not necessarily nitpicking or anti or anything like that. I'm just genuinely interested in understanding how some of the detail works through the structure. So I'll first question I'd like to ask is to do with the independence structure. And I saw from the presentation and in the booklet that if a kahui does withdraw, nonetheless, the beneficiaries of that kahui still remain beneficiaries of Tātou Tātou. Is that correct for a start?
No, once a Pacific kaui's gone through the process in the discretionary trust for special resolution to withdraw from Tātou Tātou, then those that kahui becomes independent and no longer is represented on tātou tātou. So what we're doing is just separating out the commercial and financial. Like we can't separate the cultural because cultural is still essentially, because that's what the Crown wanted, one single comprehensive settlement with tātou tātou. So we can't separate that out because the Crown doesn't see beyond our own structure, it just sees us. So, but if your whakapapa takes you somewhere else to another kahui that wants to stay within that, then you individually can be still connected to both.
I think I understood that. So if let's just use Hine Manuhiri as an example. If Hine Manuhiri withdrew, I would be a beneficiary of the kahui set up for Hine Manuhiri, and that's separate. But the cultural redress aspects of the settlement still stay with tātou tātou. So as a Hine Manuhiri person, I still have a right to look to tātou tātou to represent me in the cultural redress aspects of the settlement. So therefore I would still be a beneficiary of tātou tātou, but only to the extent of I have a right to look to cultural redress. Is that correct?
So that cultural redress, there were an agreement or arrangement set up between the kahui and tātou tātou. So if anything that relating to cultural redress was coming through tātou tātou would flow to Hine Manuhiri, and that entity that's been independent will be engaging directly on cultural redress, because a lot of the Crown officials come to tātou tātou first, and then it will be up to tātou tātou to make sure that information gets to the correct kahui, so then they can make that decision and then deal directly rather than flowing through all the time through tātou tātou. Yeah, because that creates a bit of an efficiency, but a lot of the times all Crown agencies will come to tātou tātou first because that's the PSG, that's what they see recorded everywhere. So we need some kind of process to make sure that information gets to where it needs to go, so then that engagement can happen directly.
I agree and understand with what you're saying. I had a quick look through the restated trust deed last night, and this was one thing that I couldn't quite work it out. And it seemed to me that on the face of the wording, so just using me as the example again, that I would still be a beneficiary of tātou tātou. Yep. But the question that rose, I immediately thought was, well, what's the nature of my beneficial relationship with tātou tātou? Because to me, it should be different from the point that independence process is kicked into place. But I just wasn't quite sure on the face of it from reading the trust deed. Does that mean, though, here's an operational question, does that mean, using me as the example again, does my name come off the tātou tātou register?
Yes, it would do. It would be separate. So what we also agreed to is that because if an independent kahui went independent, they would need to still fund 1/7 of a person, because someone has to sit there and answer these requests from Crown. So there is a cost for an independent kahui to facilitate that connection of that information coming through that cultural redress.
Yes, but that one person still sitting there on behalf of my now independent kahui is not a director of the corporate trustee.
Just an employee, someone answering emails and replying.
It's someone who's going to have to facilitate the communication.
Got to facilitate the communication.
Yep, but so I come off the tātou tātou register.
Yep.
I'm on the register of my independent kahui. Yep. So the next question I have relates to the registers. Mm-hmm. So currently you've got the tātou tātou register, and the kahui are all in various different stages of having either their own or setting them up or whatever. Is tātou tātou sharing the main register with the kahui in order to ensure that the info is flowing through?
So basically, currently all the trustees have individual access to their kahui databases. What we can't do is share it currently with kahui because there's no structure. So we need to create that structure to create that relationship, then say, will you have that one-to-one? This is the official structure where our communications through that kahui trust, that discretionary trust. At the moment, there's no thing there. We can't get everyone who turns up to a meeting access. We want to make sure it's proper because of confidentiality around and people's information. So.
Yep, that's fair enough too. But when the kahui has legitimate structure in place, then the information from the register can be shared and put into another register just for that kahui.
Yeah. Well, currently the database we have has the ability for you to view, the kahui to view their members who have registered them, not only the ones who selected them for primary voting purposes, but all those who have indicated they have Hine Manuhiri or specific whakapapa to individual kahui. So you get to see everyone in your kahui in terms of their name. So that's the plan.
Thank you. I have a few more questions, but I'm going to stop
Stop.
because I don't want to hog the microphone. So I'm going to let someone
Instead of-
else. I'm going to let someone else speak. No, someone else. Any questions like that?
We understand the unit trust and the unit, so we're taking the settlement usually is held by your trustees in their name. So we're putting this in a kind of a structure where the settlement commercial side is, and the financial is in these units. And it's up to individual kauri to make decisions about what they're doing with their annual distribution, whether they can reinvest it back into the tata to increase the units, or they can withdraw their annual distribution. So it's kind of a way to, I guess, make it clear on where each kahui sit in terms of how much their kahui's, their strategic direction of their kahui wants to go in terms of their investing or withdrawing, you could say. But at the end of the day, we started from a 1/7 equal share. We did have advice on looking at how could we value breaches, how could we value everything, and found that it would be too much of a process that will put basically ourselves against each other. It wouldn't be a nice process in trying to value the breaches of different kahui with other kahui. We need to go and get through everyone's whakapapa to ascertain a population base. We need to have discussions about area of interest in terms of which hapu we're where. So it would be quite a difficult process to follow and come up with what would be the exact shares of each kahui in the units. So it was just easier to go 1/7 and keep it equal, but then have the flexibility for kahui to make those decisions about what they're doing with their annual distributions.
Tēnā tātou. Ko Tina Kreiti ana hau. My husband and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law come under the kahui of Te Wairo Tāpokorau Whānui. And I'm going to come on from this lady over here. In the event that the 7 kahui decide to go independent, have you considered what the next move would be?
If the 7 were to independent, that would mean basically the last one to go independent will be tata for the foreseeable future. They would be there needs to be a tata, so there needs to be a structure. So we can't all leave. Someone needs to occupy that position because the Crown, government agencies need a tata. There's legal requirements through the Settlement Act to be a tata.
Oh, aroha mai, I should have told you. I've been involved with Ngāti Pro claims and settlements. I've been involved with Rongo Whakaata claims and settlement. So I'm familiar, but what I did, but hypothetically, that would mean that because your current structure, the mana of the structure is actually in the kahui. Is that correct?
We want to move, because currently it's your standard PSG model. One centralised, the mana kind of currently sits with us really, because that's the corporate structure that the Crown likes to have. You know, that's what they want. So we're trying to move away from what they wanted, because we wanted to get through their process, to get to a process whereby we're shifting to the mana with the kahui. But at the same time, there's with the mana goes responsibility. And we all need to know that we all just can't go independent because there is some collectiveness that's still required. So we still got to be collective, but at the same time have our kahui independence in some respects. So it's going to be it needs to be an agreement if we ever got to that stage, so how we would handle that.
No, don't get me wrong, I think you've done a great job, to be honest. I think because you've made reference to Ngāti Porou and also to Tainui, I think there were some good learnings from these structures, and I think you've taken the best pieces and put it together. I do like the fact that you have the kāhui at the top of the chain, right? And I think there is a necessity to have the commercial and also the charitable arms, just like Ngāti Porou have with the holding company and Tūtoi. And I think I just hope when you bring in the implement, because you haven't got it there yet, the independency in your trust deed, is that correct? You haven't actually got the policy or the resolution for what happens, the steps of the operational arm. Like if this hapu, this lady spoke about, they decide after 5 years, they can withdraw. I was just wondering, you mentioned that they'll still have an obligation to cover administrative costs. And I'm just wondering why would you encourage that if they become independent?
Because basically the Crown and City Settlement see one single comprehensive entity, tātou still. Those are where the cultural relationship sits. They don't sit with the kāhui because we negotiated one single. So to get those relationships and the information flowing from those Crown agencies to the kāhui, someone needs to sit there and facilitate that to get to them, and so they can have their direct conversations. So that is a cost, and that shouldn't be a cost borne by those that have stayed together. It's a cost borne by those that want to go independent. Right?
Aroha mai. I know that you're trying to work in line with the Crown, but see, I've gone past that space. For us as Māori, we need to move away from that space. And the first step you've got is fantastic. I just think you need to own the space now.
Yep, that's it.
You know, if I was talking about, we've got mokopuna, my husband and I, ranging from 2 years to 24 years, and my sister-in-law and my brother-in-law, we all have mokopuna that whakapapa into our kāhui. And, you know, at the end of the day, the claims process, we have to understand, was redressing the injustices of the past that our people have suffered, not a mechanism for them to control what we do going forward. And sorry, that's just me, that's how I am, and that's why I advocate.
Yeah. So the challenge for us is, how do we get your mokopunas to move back home? Yeah, so how do you get back to Wairoa? How do you move them back to there to live? You know, a lot of our have to move away because of the justices of the Crown and what they forced our people to leave Wairoa. Now we want to encourage them to come back. And come back to what though? We need those jobs, we need to make sure we're keeping them health, safe, everything, have an employment, have a kind of a structure there that they can affiliate to, that makes them proud to live back in Wairoa. Ta-da.
Thank you. I did have just a few more questions. I saw in the structure that there's flexibility for the kāhui to trade the units with each other, and I mean, I'm not against the idea of flexibility. I think that's great, but I was just trying to imagine an example of where and why they would do that, and I couldn't think of any. So I just wondered as trustees whether you had anticipated or can think of an example where that might occur.
Particularly if you got a farm up for sale and a particular kāhui may not have enough units to cover that, they can then get in a joint venture with another kāhui and to go and purchase that particular farm. So yeah, it comes down to flexibility from there's some large capital investments that a particular kāhui want to do, and they may not have all those units available. That's not to say they can trade them. They can also use it as collateral to go lend against it and borrow against from the banks and stuff like that, because it's going to be reflected on their balance sheets. the units, so they can use it as a capital base to then leverage of other opportunities. So, and they exist.
The units, though, are not the actual assets, though, eh? They're the right to an income from the assets. So if Kāhui did use the units as security for lending, then I'm assuming it would only be the right to, it's only the right to the income that's being used as security, right? Yeah, but the base asset's safe because it's still with tātou.
Until the provisions of the independence have been
Yep.
fulfilled, which they.
Okay, yep. No, that's good. That makes me feel better. On the major transaction provisions, I did see that often in these PSGE structures, the threshold is 50%, which is the same as the Companies Act threshold. And I saw in this one that it's been dropped to 25% across the trust group. And so I think that's fine.
Flow on from what we originally said in our current trustee has 25, so we haven't altered that major transaction threshold. We'll just left that as it is.
One point to note, though, is that for the entities in the structure that accompanies the Companies Act major transaction test will still apply, won't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. So you get two major transaction tests. You get the trust one, which is at the 25% across all the group assets. You get the second one, which is Companies Act, which is just for that company. It's 50%. Yeah. Okay. On the commercial arm, I saw on the slide that says a minimum of 5 directors. Is there a maximum? Sorry, I can't. I did flick through the documents, but I can't remember.
No, we have discussed a maximum of seven directors. So, but when we move to 7, though, 2 will need to be based in Wairau, 2 Wairau baselines.
And that's written into the constitution of the commercial.
That'll be written in the commercial, yeah, to give a minimum and maximum.
Yeah. The other question I had in respect to the commercial board, I saw from some of the slides, I think they anticipate that a lot, some or all of the assets, settlement assets, will be going across to the commercial board. Do you, as trustees, yet have any idea, resolutions, policies on what's going across to the commercial board, how much, when, or anything like that?
So we once we get this unit trust and representation model ratified, and then it's the process of basically establishing the directors on the commercial board and going through that process of selection. It'll be because mainly the 113.4 million was made up of forest assets, which are run by 2 separate forest companies, Wharata Forest Limited and Paitanamu. So they're not in the commercial arm. So the commercial arm is just focusing on cash. We're starting, that cash is about 93 million, I think. So they're going to start with that. They're going to start a lot of flexibility with a lot of cash to enable them to do some key investments and what's best to get the best return.
Do you yet have any idea of how much of that cash will go to the commercial board? Are you going to retain some back in tātou?
It'll be probably all of it.
All of it?
Yeah. At the end of the day, what happens with tātou is its costs and expenditure as well as the commercial board will come off before the distributions. So our costs will be covered from whatever the commercial board earns as well. And from that gets the 60-40 split in that year 4. So 60% of it gets reinvested and 40% goes to distributions. Yeah, so we're going to be pretty lean and small. We're not wanting to build the big corporate structure of having 30, 40, 50, 60, 100 employees. That's not our role.
Sure.
Kāhui's role to do that now. That's where you want to build the structure at the grassroots. Don't build a centralised pyramid type structure. So we want to just have a handful of employees, a general manager, a relationships person, because our settlement was relationship based, a lot of relationships, and also a policy person, because these things that come through from Crown every week, commenting on this policy, commenting on that policy, we need someone there to keep abreast of all that. And other than that, admin, I don't see the need for having a big structure.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's an admirable sometimes the structures can be too bloated,
Yeah.
so to try and keep it lean and mean is not a bad thing.
Yeah.
Although I do wonder if all of the asset went across to the commercial board, is there a risk perhaps that the parent entity could be hamstrung because it hasn't got it hasn't got the asset?
Yeah. Well, it's, yeah.
Even though it's intending to stay lean and mean, as you just said, dealing with the environmental things, resource consent applications and pānui from government agencies, and so it actually takes a lot of work.
Yeah.
So
we
you will need some resource.
Yeah, so we did estimate the operating cost to be 1.35 million in the presentation, so at least that's going to be the initial operating budget for us, that is. Other than that, yeah, we'll try and keep it as lean as possible. Yeah, so that's a relationship with the commercial company that's a trustee limited and the commercial limited of the board. So they need to create a return for the commercial arm has to create a return. So we're not financial experts at this level. It's not our job to be those financial experts, and holding any of those assets back that could unlock a lot of potential wouldn't be prudent for us, because our job is to increase that commercial pute, that increases the distribution. It's growing the assets. So if we were to only give them half of what it is, then that wouldn't be prudent, because we wouldn't meet the projections. But at the same time, we need to be mindful of what they're doing. We have the hiring and firing rights of them. So if they weren't performing, then we could fire them and get another set in.
Just on the investment policy that you developed, coming back to what the lady's talking about, because you still have to consider the independence of people moving out, would it not be a wise decision to actually have a 5-year operational pūtea within your tātou, just to, well, that's normal best practice in business. The other thing is, I'd like to ask the question reinvestments, because if you put in $90 million for it, so if you put in $90 million in your commercial arm or into your business arm, what return on investment would you be expecting to get from it? Because normally, I'm just familiar with what Ngāti Pro did. They've gone and put most of their money, I think off the top of my head, into that commercial arm. But the return on investment to sustain the best outcomes was long term. So they were in there for the long haul, which meant they couldn't pull some of that money out because it would break the long term objective of getting high yield from it. And I was just wondering, having learned from that, whether or not, because when you invest in your own operational arm, you can actually invest in putting that money into banks. To be honest, at the moment they're 3 or 4, 5%. You could get return anyway for your money. But I'm just a bit like this with this whanaunga over here, that I'm not always good about investing long term.
They'll only have a balance of long term, short term, medium term, long term. So that's part of what we're going to tell them to come up with, the statement of investments and priorities and objectives, the SIPOs. So that's their role is to come down up. We don't want to set it for them, because sometimes when you set a policy for someone, they'll blame the policy and blame you for setting it. But if we say these are your general parameters, we're going to need to see this happen over from these basic projections. You develop the SIPO, come back to us, and we go yep or no. That's the way. So they tell us, and we're the ones who tick it off. I read it now. That's questions. I was thinking about yesterday some of the questions our whānau Wairau had. I think yesterday was quite a subdued meeting. They're more in-depth questions are starting to come from as we move out of Wairau. And that's been a strategy. That was a strategy for the trustees. We needed to. We've always found our Wairau whānau to be pretty, passionate. Some of the questions they asked. So to take some of the heat out of that, we decided to invest heavily in making sure they were engaged in this all the way through. So they've been up to play, and they had no questions because they've been having kahui meetings since the start of the year, meeting with our lawyers. The lawyers have been coming engaging with them. And so they've kind of got a more of a knowledge with what the unit trust is and what the representation is. So that was good. So that was pretty easy than previous who we've had back home. Yeah, I'm expecting as we get out, we'll get these more ranging questions. That's what we want. Yeah, so it is unique, the model. We're thinking for me, it's thinking it's a bit complex. When people think it's complex, other than a straight model, this is a bit of a complex arrangement, but we had to have that complexity and that uniqueness to suit our own circumstances to make sure kahui at one stage and kahui at another stage had their flexibility to do what they wanted to do. Because at the end of the day, what we're trying to achieve here is the Crown, through their policies, established this structure. We had this structure in place when we were living back at home alone without Crown intervention. And when the Crown came along to get access to the land, they established these structures and took them away. And then they took the land and they created all those treaty breaches. So we're trying to kind of re-establish it in some respects, but with the best knowledge of what we've learned so far in trying to create a professional. And at the same time, we're trying to, not only the trustees here trying to be professional, trying to lift the grassroots kauri structures to be professional as well. Everyone's got to be, and we want the best people sitting in the kauri level, the best people at the tata level, so that then they can make the best decisions. But at the same time, whānau need to keep an eye on everyone. That's the key. Be engaged. Seek out ask questions of your kauri, what they're doing. What's your strategic vision? What's our aspirations? What are we doing with our annual income distribution? Is it wise to do that? Should we just do this instead? So it's going to require a lot more engagement from our members continuing on.
Leon, I've got one more.
Oh.
I promise it's the last one. Just looking at the structure diagram, because I agree it is complex, although given the complexities of our ourselves, I'm not sure you could have done a simpler one. So it's just is what it is. But I'm just wondering if you anticipate that the kahui will, whether they stay in or out, will have more of the mana to do things themselves. And they might even have their own charitable arms or be charities themselves. Does tātou really need a charitable arm, or would it be simpler not to have that at all? Unless the tax people have put it in there for
I think it
tax
just gives us
reasons.
flexibility. If there was a need for something to be charitable, it just gives us that charitable arm to do that if it need be. But I don't think it'll be a big process or utilised that much. It's just for flexibility, I think, and they're wanting it in, just in case.
So there's a possibility that could be quite lean and mean,
That will
that
be
part
lean
of the
and-
structure as well.
That will be lean and mean and hardly used, yeah.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, because just in the diagram you've got charitable trust arm and then under that non-taxable commercial subsidiaries, which to me looks immediately complicated.
Yeah,
but I've got a feeling, what would you need the non-taxable commercial subsidiaries for? Probably not, so...
Yeah. I think we're trying to do this at one stage, get all the structure there, and then have that flexibility to do what we need to do.
Yeah, because more entities is more cost.
More costs, yeah. Well, we don't want. So we're looking at the three companies: the Trustee Limited, which is the one that the trustees will be directors on, and the Commercial Limited and the Charitable Limited. So that's the kind of circle of the three.
Well, you could make the charitable arm simpler by not having a corporate company and just incorporating as a board. So that takes one more entity out of the structure. Yeah.
But we definitely got a draft trustee limited up and a draft commercial board constitution up.
Yeah.
So we've kind of focused on those first, and whether charitable is in there, and it's still to be finalised.
Sure. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was the last one.
Cool. So basically all the kawi is setting up their own discretionary trust. So we had a couple that had existing structures, an iwi trust and an incorporated society, and it was based on the advice they've been working with legal advisors, is that they set up their own discretionary trust. So the 7 kahui are going to be setting up 7 discretionary trusts. 2 have already got theirs ready to go and finalised. The other 4 or 5 are working on the final details. So that their documents should be up for the next couple of weeks for their discretionary trusts. Cool. No further questions, and thank you, Whānau. Good, awesome questions. That's definitely good for us. Good feedback. But yeah, thank you, and thanks for watching our presentation and attending today. I mean.
Kai mo hini mga